Bethenny Frankel is dragging the RHONY Reboot and shouting out her fellow co-stars. We have Dorit Kemsley, this dragon Sutton, after saying that she needs plastic surgery to look pretty, and Kim Zolciak's house is going up for auction. It's about time. Let's dive in. You're listening to No Filter with Zack Peter, your go-to source for all the latest pop culture and reality TV tea, served fresh all week long. Now, let's dive in. Welcome on in, welcome on in, welcome on in. What's going on? Happy Monday, everybody in the club. In the club, we all fam. In the club, we all fam. What's up, guys? I put my hand up on my hip. When I dip, she dip, she dip. I put my hand up on my hip. When you dip, she dip, she dip. Well, I hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you guys did something fun. We have not a whole ton of news, but we do have some goodies that we will be diving into. My goodies, my goodies, my goodies, not my goodies. And before we do, I wanted to give a shout out because you guys have been leaving reviews and you guys have been so good and so supportive that I just wanted to keep the love going. So please keep the reviews coming. They really do help out a lot. This one comes from Brina253, says, always appreciate your level-headed and logical outlook. You've never been one-sided when it comes to analyzing and commenting on reality tea or anything else. Hearing your seemingly nonpartisan opinions are no surprise and refreshingly informative. Seemingly nonpartisan? What is that supposed to mean? Is there a little shade in there? And then Agisha says, you are incredible. I have always loved your show, but I'm listening to all the tea, but I am so unbelievably impressed on the way that you have dissected the world since the election and just brought everything to light. You explain things so well, and you are so blunt and honest, and it's truly a joy listening to you. Keep going. Keep being amazing. Love you. Thank you, guys. Love you, love you, love you. Love you, mean it. Love you, mean it. What's up, guys? Thank you for the reviews on Apple. Please keep them coming because I do love getting to see them. I love reading them. You guys always bring joy to my life every day. Every day. We also have some comments on Spotify that I want to shout out. Liza last week, Thursday's episode said, what a great podcast today, educational and informative. Allison Belmore says, love your take on politics, Zach. Seriously, thank you for looking at both sides and spreading truth rather than hate. Thank you. Courtney Malling says, always love your podcast, so please keep the comments coming. Okay. That's enough of shout outs. I love shouting you guys out, but I know you're here for the tea. I'm also going to be bringing back, I used to call them tidbits of tea. Maybe I'll call them tidbits of tea again, but right now they're just highlights, which are, we have the long form live streams that we do and that go out on the podcast. But then I'm thinking of taking like 2 or 3 of the meatiest topics from each of those long form videos and maybe doing individual like 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 minute clips. That way, you get just that one little tidbit that you're interested in. So I think I'll bring those back on YouTube. So that way you have the full size content and the short little tidbits. But where do we want to start today? Because we have a lot to get into. Well, I guess let's start with Kim and Kroy, because they are, doing the damn thing. They're trying. They are trying. So Kim and Kroy, okay, I don't even know what's going on. Remember, they were like on again and off again and trying to make it work and then not, and then calling the cops and then telling the cops no. And then she was trying to leave and he was holding her hostage. It's always some sort of drama for your mama. But the latest on the Kim and Kroy, who knows what's going on with their divorce, but they obviously have mounds of debt that they're now needing to pay off. Their house has gone into foreclosure. I want to say like multiple times. They've denied it, but there have been like, times where they were trying to negotiate and trying to keep the house, and they were saying they didn't have financial issues, but the reports that were coming out were saying that they do have financial issues. So now the house is going up for auction on December 3rd. So they've been trying to sell this house. It's not going. Nobody's wanting to buy it, probably because of all the bad juju in it. but they just decided to slash the price yet again, taking off another 300,000. So it's just over 3 mil that they're trying to sell the house for in Atlanta or in Georgia, sorry. And I don't think anybody's going to buy this house. I mean, so the auction date is set for December 3rd. We're literally weeks away from December 3rd. If they don't sell the house before then, it'll absolutely go up for auction. But in my mind, I'm like, well, who's going to buy it if they know that it's going to go up for auction? And that's where you can probably have the best chance of getting the best price. I don't know. To me, it just doesn't make sense that anybody would buy it before the auction unless they think that it's going to go for more than what they're trying to sell it for. But if they think that it's going to go for more at the auction, then they wouldn't be trying to sell. Trish says the bank will buy it. Well, the bank isn't buying it for these prices. I mean, I guess the bank's going to buy it for the best price that they can get it for at auction. We'll see. I don't understand what, like, these two are just toxic, 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 toxic. I have zero interest in anything. Trish said the bank will buy it, then pursue its claim for deficiency. There you go. We'll see what happens. But I just think Kim and Croy are the disaster that keeps on giving. I know that there were all those like rumors about Chet Hanks and Kim Zolciak, uncertain what's going on there. They were on the Surreal Life together, and I know they were just recently they were spotted at a Jelly Roll concert, and so people are like, "Oh my god, are they together? Aren't they together? Are they or aren't they?" Because they, I guess, were like flirty on Surreal Life. I didn't watch Surreal Life. I don't know if anybody else did. You know what I am watching though is House of Villains. I'm actually enjoying this season on House of Villains. I think it's not bad, right? I mean, my hopes weren't super high. I feel like shows like that are always kind of tough because you never know if they're going to be a hit or not, or if they're going to be any good. I enjoy it for what it is, right? It's just kind of like a fun, campy show. I kind of like this cast a little better than last season's cast. I think New York has really shown up. I mean, I feel like last season had an all-star cast because they had, you know, Corinne, they had Johnny Bananas, they had Omarosa, they had New York. And this season, I feel like some of the villains I wasn't really familiar with. Like, I didn't know who Wes was. I didn't know who Danny, who's the muscle guy with the flex. I didn't know who he was. Um, but they have Teresa Giudice and they have Larsa Pippen from Miami. She was the latest addition to join the House of Villains. And I thought it was, listen, it's entertaining, right? It's not like deep. And I think because we know the stakes aren't that high, it's just kind of like silly and fun. So I'm definitely enjoying the season of House of Villains. New York and Teresa, the way New York just like runs circles around Teresa is hilarious. And then there was a plot twist with Teresa and Larsa, and I was like, what? And it was just, it's good. Um, it's good. I also somehow, I don't know how my algorithm took me there, but I ended up with Teresa's cooking videos on TikTok. Also, quite enjoyable. I was actually thoroughly entertained. I kind of like seeing that side of her where she's kind of just like not super glam, but she's at the market and she's shopping with Melania and then coming back and her and Melania are cooking in the kitchen. I was like, oh, okay, I'm here for it. Welcome to New York, New Jersey. The way Tiffany, New York, just like run circles around Teresa when she was like, listen, I've always respected your hairline on television. And then this week she was like, sometimes I get your show confused with Mob Wives. And Teresa just like doesn't have a clue. Like it doesn't register in her. She doesn't understand that like Tiffany's totally shading her, but it is funny. Trish Hobbs Phillips with the super sticker, the super chat. What's up, Trish Hobbs Phillips? What's going on? What's going on? I missed y'all. We missed you too, love. We missed you too, and we're so happy to have you back. Back in the house of villains. Brooke Loves says, "Hey guys, this is my first time active in the live chat. I normally listen on Apple Podcasts in the afternoon." Hi, Brooks. Hi, Brooke. Brooke, bravo, babe. You guys, bravo, babe is like fighting with Tamara. I don't know if you guys have seen this over the last week. She's like in a full-on feud with Tamara Judge. And I'm just like, yo, everybody needs to chill. The drama, all the drama. There's so much drama every day. Love the Bravo, babe. Um, okay. That was Kim and Croy, and I guess my endorsement of House of Villains. Watch it. It's actually entertaining. Um, so let's talk about do you wanna talk about Bethenny? The bee has got it going on. So Bethenny has ditched the, Bethany's ditched the reality reckoning because now she's reminiscing on all the glory days of RHONY back in its OG era, right? She gave a shout out to Luann and Dorinda and Sonia and Ramona. Those are the only four. I think she also kind of gave a shout out to Jill Zarin too, in her original video. But she posted a new video saying like to the audio basically saying like I could be a lot meaner and I don't get enough credit for not being meaner, and she was referencing talking about the RHONY reboot. It's uncertain if she's finally seen it because originally she was like, I haven't seen it, but everyone keeps texting me and they're telling me that it's so bad and I don't know if it's any good, but everyone keeps telling me it's unwatchable. And so she posted this video with the audio about how she could be so much meaner and people need to give her um credit for not being as mean as she could be, especially as it relates to the reboot. And then with what do you call it? With with shoot, I'm having a brain fart. Um oh, with the caption is when she shouted out the rest of the ladies, which I thought was, good for her. I think it's nice to see that she's, like, giving credit to the OGs and giving credit to what the original show was, but, like, she also did play a really big hand in why the original show kind of went under, right? So in what was it? Not All Diamonds and Rosé? Yeah, that's the Dave Quinn book. In the book, they talk about how Bethenny was supposed to film that new season, which was Leah McSweeney's first season. Like everyone blames Leah McSweeney for ruining RHONY, and I'm not saying she made it much better, but it wasn't entirely her fault. I think a lot of things happened that led RHONY to take the nosedive that it ultimately ended up taking. One, I think Bethany's abrupt exit. Because I mean, when you pull out the day before filming, I understand that when you're in contract negotiations, you wait till the very last minute. And there's never really a threat or a scare that you're not going to sign. It's just like, well, how can we meet in the middle? Where can we, find a way to make sure everybody's happy at the end of the day and make sure like it makes sense for the network. And she turned down her final offer the day that they were supposed to go into production. And I believe the rest of the cast members didn't even know that Bethenny wasn't coming back for the next season until the night before production began. So, and I think that season's when we see everybody reacting to the Variety article that was released where she gave her exclusive statement. I believe it was to Variety, where she announced her departure from the series. And like it was official, it was real. Bethenny has said, I mean, her story I feel like has kind of changed a few times. She said it was about money, it wasn't about money. But in from what I remember of all the different versions she's told about why she left the show, she said that there was something that she wanted in the contract and they weren't willing to give it to her. And they made her an offer that was final. They made her a final offer, and she said that according to that final offer, when somebody gives you a final offer, that offer is done and final. So she says that that offer just didn't give her what it was that she wanted. So she decided to walk away from it. She says that it wasn't money. She says that it was something else. I don't know if it was like a producer credit or what she was looking for exactly, but whatever it was, she decided to walk away. And I think she wanted to walk away. I think she wanted the show to tank without her. Because why else would you? I mean, that's like leaving without giving your 2 weeks notice. You could give the network and the other cast members some respect of like preparing because obviously the loss of Bethenny Frankel, that's a big presence to lose on the show, especially since she was such an integral part of the show and she was such an integral like she had an like her role and her presence on the show was that absence was absolutely going to be felt. So it just didn't make sense um, that she now wants to be like the show was great and I can't believe Bravo discarded Dorinda and Ramona and Sonia and Luann despite they were making the show great. But those last 2 seasons without Bethenny, not great. Leah's first season struggled a little bit. So I think Bethenny leaving hurt the show. Tinsley then left halfway through the season. I think that also hurt the show. And then Dorinda was fired at the end of that season. So you lost three prominent roles on that show, three prominent people on that show. So when you have and listen, Leah McSweeney, whether you liked her or hated her first season, she wasn't enough to fill one, let alone all three of those roles, right? Because Bethenny Frankel, big presence to lose. Dorinda Medley, big presence to lose. Tinsley, I wouldn't say was the biggest presence to lose, but the fact that they had already lost Bethenny and then Tinsley was leaving halfway through the season and she was pulling out of her contract does also hurt the show. And I remember in that finale, Dorinda was like ranting about how she was upset that like Tinsley was going to hurt her job or like she was hurting the season. And they kind of broke the fourth wall a little bit. And Dorinda was very upset with Tinsley. And I know that they had a rough season that year, her and Tinsley, but like, I get it. You know, I don't think Dorinda was as upset with Bethenny as she should have been. And she was a little more upset with Tinsley. And I did not really appreciate how hard she came at Tinsley. I understood her frustrations, but it was a rough season to watch, and Dorinda definitely needed that pause. I think had Bethenny been there, had Tinsley wrote out the rest of the season, it would have maybe balanced some things out a bit because I do really like Dorinda, and I think she brings a lot to the show. But I mean, to lose Bethenny, Dorinda, and Tinsley in the same season to then move into the next season, and to bring in Ebony, like Ebony, let's be honest, we can say it now. Ebony was one of the worst additions to the show. I think she wasn't an organic casting, which neither was Leah McSweeney, which is why Leah kind of struggled to fit in. And this has been the challenge with Housewives is they want to differentiate the cast, right? They want to bring in younger people. They want to bring in, you know, a diverse cast, which can make sense as long as the pieces fit together, right? Like you can't force the pieces together or else it does feel a bit disconjointed, right? I feel like Beverly Hills is kind of like that with the current cast. Like we're trying to make it work, but it's also like kind of struggle city, right? Because we're trying to fit people into these groups that aren't an organic group of friends and they don't really like each other and they don't like Dorit and Garcelle are just never going to be friends. And the fact that we keep them in the same group together, like they're never going to have chemistry. They're never going to be able to work through their issues and have a friendship. They just don't like each other. So the fact they have to continue to work with each other season after season, it does become a little fatiguing because it's like this isn't a group of friends, you know? Ebony just didn't work in the mix. I thought, I mean, but like not in a way of like Ebony was bad, but in a way that like like Ebony is somebody that she's a very like intelligent, like she's a good commentator, right? Like she could be on The View. She could be like, I think she even has her podcast now, which I think is doing really well. Like she's just so savvy and she's not going to be like shitting the floor like Ramona and Sonia, right? Like it wasn't a fit. It didn't work. I know they wanted to bring in like businesswoman and Ebony K. Williams, and it wasn't a match and it wasn't going to work. And I think she kept forcing a lot of the political conversations that year because, you know, we were in 2020 and that was a big conversation that year. And, you know, I think that there are ways to tackle it without letting it feel like it's becoming like a lecture moment, which I think a lot of people watching that season felt like Ebony was lecturing them rather than giving us an opportunity to get to know her. And then you had like Ramona, who wasn't making Ebony's job any easier. So I think it was a bad mix, and Ebony was not a good fit for RHONY. I mean, a lot of housewives they try to squeeze in here just like this, like Jenna Lyons, not a great mix. She's not a housewife. And she's not real. At least Bethany's like, I'm not a housewife, but I am real. Jenna Lyons, terrible housewife. Terrible. Rebecca Minkoff, even worse. Everybody thinks Teddy's the most boring housewife ever. Hello, have you met Rebecca Minkoff? Like she's the worst of the worst, you know? So not only is she boring, but there's just nothing that she brings to the table. Not fashion, not looks, like not, you know. Yeah, Jenna Lyons does not want to be Jenna Lyons. I'm surprised Jenna Lyons came back as well because I just don't think she ever cared to do the show. I mean, they had to have paid her a lot of money and given her, you know, opportunities to really promote her businesses. Because other than that, I don't see why she came back. I don't get how anybody even likes watching Jenna Lyons. Like, I get if you like her, and this is the other thing, same thing with Ebony. I get if you like them as people, right? And you follow them online, you watch their podcasts or whatever it is. I get that, but on this show and in this, medium, doesn't really work, right? Rebecca Minkoff, great fashionista businesswoman, right? Built a fashion empire. That's her, that's where she really thrives. I don't want to say that's her lane because I feel like people can, merge into different lanes and still have a cohesive brand and career. But in some cases, you need to know when the lane just doesn't suit your car, right? Sydney says she even said that she only came back because there was a new older lesbian joining also, who's also a terrible casting. Like, I don't really enjoy her either. Like, had very low expectations for her, and then I watched the show and I was like, okay, I'm kind of giving in the first episode. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of giving her a chance. And then now I'm like, okay. mm, the Miss Rouse says, Zach, would you consider covering the Nikki Garcia and Artem divorce situation? I do cover that on my other show, The Pop Report. So you can tune into the Pop Report. We've covered it since the initial arrest. But yeah, Nikki Garcia, Artem, messy, messy, messy. Interesting that the charges were dropped against him and now he's like fighting her. It's crazy. Lori says, I love Jenna's lashes. They're great. Yeah. Buy the lash line, right? Watch it. Like, okay, another perfect example is Busy Phillips. Hilarious, right? Funny, quirky, great on Instagram stories, great at telling stories, great in white chicks, like great in those movie roles for Busy Phillips. However, Busy Phillips, when they gave her a talk show on E, terrible. It was a horrible show. Wasn't good. That's just one example of like sometimes, you know, you need to know when the lane just doesn't work for you. That's an example of that. So I get Bethenny's commentary about like, give the OGs their credit, but also you have to credit Bethenny for part of why the show went down. And I think the show went down because they lost Bethenny, they lost Tinsley, and then they lost Dorinda. It was too many losses. They were unexpected. They weren't prepared for them. And then they brought in Ebony and Leah, who were just not strong enough to carry the show and move it forward. They just weren't. It's always hard when you lose such a chunk of your core cast that you have to have people that can anchor the show. And unfortunately, Luann, Dorinda, Sonia, Sonia definitely cannot anchor a show. She's fun and she's, lighthearted and levity. And Ramona is just so out of touch with reality. She's, you know, she just fell out of a coconut tree that it just doesn't make sense that she would be the anchor of the show. Like they have important roles that they fill, but you know, it is what it is. Okay, let's move on to I want to talk about Dorit. We also had the Real House of the Salt Lake City trailer, and then and then I want to talk about. I know you guys don't always love politics, but I do want to talk about the this report that came out about Oprah getting paid 2.5 million to endorse Kamala Harris, and maybe like end some of the misinformation that's out there. 'Cause first it was 1 mil, now they're saying it's 2.5, and then Oprah's like, I didn't get paid, but then they're like, here are the receipts. So we'll get into all of that, but we'll end the show with that because I'd like to end the show with the political stuff or anything that like tiptoes on the line of politics because I know some people are turned off by that. Carol Baskin killed her husband, whacked. Can't convince me that Bravo and this guy Baskin need to stop with the interviews and podcasts. I already know what happens in the Valley season 2. I mean, yeah, I know they're preventing them from like doing other podcasts, and I think now they're just trying to save it all for their own in-house podcast. But don't you have to pay for their podcast too? I don't know. But I know right now what you're probably paying for are some holiday gifts. Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. The busy holiday season is here, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful with incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on the list, all in one spot. Gifts that spark joy, wonder, delight, and that it's exactly what I wanted feeling. They scour the globe for original, handmade, and absolutely remarkable things. Somehow, they just know exactly the perfect gift for every single person that you know. Some of my favorites are some of the customizable barware. I like the home decor that you can buy off of Uncommon Goods. They're always great. What I love is that you can find gifts for every single person on your list, right? Like my mom is such an entertainer, right? So they have gifts for, hosts and hostesses from barware and glassware and different, different decorations that you can put on your table for holidays. They also have different customizable options. You can have things engraved, you can have people's names added to certain gifts, or you can customize it. One thing that I love to do is I have a lot of friends. I mean, listen, I'm in Los Angeles, so there are a lot of transplants from other states. So I like to get them like the homesick candles or they have different like glassware and different like things that you can hang up in your home that are tailored specific to the state that you're from. So I like to buy those that's tailored specifically to the state that they're from, unless they're like from, like Idaho and they're like, I don't like potatoes. I don't want to go back to Idaho. But if they do like potatoes and they do want to, remember Idaho, I had, my friends from Louisiana got them some cute Louisiana gifts for Christmas last year. So Uncommon Goods, great for all of that. Many of their products are handcrafted or they're made in small batches. So you're going to want to make sure you place your orders now. Now is the time to place those orders, and just know that you'll be supporting artists, small independent businesses, which is also, just a good way to pay it back to your community. And like I said, from holiday host and hostess gifts to the coolest finds for kids, they have something for everyone. Hits everyone on your list. Book lovers, diehard sports fans, Uncommon Goods has everything that you could need for the holiday season. This shopping is your shopping list is going to be like boom, 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 boom. You're going to clear through it. Easy. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/nofilter. That's uncommongoods.com/nofilter for 15% off. You can also use code nofilter. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Mallory says, I lived in Boise for a long time. We got potatoes from California. That's funny. Isn't Idaho is the potato state, right? It is, right? Isn't that why would you get your potatoes from California if you live in Idaho? You're supposed to get wine from California, Sonoma, right? You'd be up north. Well, actually, if we're being real and we're talking about wine, you should get wine from Europe because the regulations are a lot stricter. And so the wines are a lot cleaner and they don't have a bunch of junk additives in them. But yeah, interesting that you got your potatoes from California. What else do you get from California? Oranges, right? You get them from Orange County? Is that right, or am I totally making that up? Idaho? No, Idaho. I don't know. Mallory says Idaho is the potato state, and for New York and for New Year's Eve, they slow drop a big fake potato for celebration. Wow. Oh, fun. Marianne says, I live in Florida. Our oranges usually come from California. There you go. The best oranges come from Orange County. Dad, that's why they call it Orange County, right? Because they're oranges, right? Oranges, Orange County. Why else would they call it Orange County? It's not like it's orange out there. Yeah. Speaking of potatoes, remember when Kathy Hilton got the baked potatoes and then she put a bunch of caviar on it? Delicious. Delicious. Oh, Sharon says Michigan has cherries. All right, everyone's doing their state representation. Well, go to uncommongoods.com/nofilter and you can get more of your state pride. So you can get all the potatoes, all the potato gifts. Okay. What should we talk about? Oh, Dorit. Okay. Dorit. So Dorit is dragging Sutton Stracke. So Sutton Stracke was doing this, I think it was for Cosmopolitan. She was doing this promotion video with Lisa Barlow, and they were playing games. And she made a comment about Dorit and how Dorit, is so pretty. I think Lisa Barlow was like, "Oh, she's so pretty," and then Sutton was just like, "Yeah, when you have that much plastic surgery." And so she basically alluded to the fact that the reason Dorit is pretty is because she's had a ton of plastic surgery. And so Dorit was asked about it when she was giving an interview to Page Six to promote the new season, which starts it's this week. Yeah, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills is back this week. And she was saying, Dorit was funny because they asked her about this, and she's just like, "Well, it's so interesting that Sutton thinks that, I'm pretty because of all my plastic surgery. If she thinks that plastic surgery makes you pretty, then why hasn't she done it?" And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh," gagged, gagged and dragged. I was like, Dorit is back. Dorit is back. even Erica has been doing interviews, and she was kind of saying that like Dorit is back. She's held a lot back, and she was finally, getting everything off her chest now. And she was really activated this season. So we can look forward to a good season with Dorit. It's about time, right? Like it's been kind of tough with Dorit. Dorit is always a good savage fighter, right? Remember Scrappy Dorit in her first couple of seasons? She was great. Loved that Dorit. And then eventually, like, the audience hated her and she was the villain, and then she kinda toned it down a little bit, and then Garcelle came on the scene, and then Garcelle came at Dorit, and Garcelle, like, kept trying to insinuate that Dorit's racist and all of this stuff. And so I think that kind of got Dorit to kinda, because I mean, listen, anytime anybody fights with Garcelle, it's not an even playing field, because Garcelle always has a way of turning herself into the victim when it comes, and then immediately shutting the conversation down, so you don't really get messy with her. She did it to Kyle, she's done it to Dorit, she's just not my favorite housewife. I'm looking forward to Bose and seeing what Bose brings to the table. I didn't mind Anne Marie. Crystal, I liked her at first, and then she like really kind of lost her way, and then she was just starting to find her way again. And I was like, at this point, I'm not interested in Crystal. Sutton, I'm predicting it now. Sutton is going to be your next Lisa Rinna, and the audience is going to turn on her. Eventually, they're just going to be like, Sutton, this is too much. It's too toxic. I'm predicting it now. Like Caroline Manzo, you heard it here first. I've had a love-hate relationship with Sutton. I've liked her. I've disliked her, but I'm calling it now because they always end up killing their heroes, right? What do they say? You either die the villain or live, or you either die the hero or live long enough to become the villain. Sutton is going to become the next villain, and people are going to become, they're going to start to feel over her the same way they started to feel over uh, Lisa Rinna. It just, listen, I don't make the rules. The rules are what they are, and that is one of the rules. Shelby says, might have to start Dorito back. I might have to start Dorito back to Dorit. Loved her calling Camille. Oh, I see you next Tuesday. Yes, bring her back. I mean, yeah. Crystal had too many weird secrets. Did she? I don't remember Crystal having secrets. She just wasn't very open with her life. And like with the money that she had and the access that she had through Rob Minkoff, like I was expecting Crystal to be a Beverly Hills housewife, right? And she wasn't. Her Taco Tuesday, Alfred. I mean, if it wasn't for, Erica getting Denise's coochie and throwing it on the grill and firing her up, that would have been a boring Taco Tuesday, you know? Erica and Denise Richards really saved that. That Taco Tuesday looked real lame. Like it was just like we didn't even really see like it was, I don't know. It was dumb. It was like a real boring event. And I'm just like, come on. Mallory says, Zach, do you like Real Houses of Beverly Hills is woke, like Camille said, and then can't define what woke means? Do you think? Do I think it's woke, like Camille said? I did see this tweet. Camille Grammer, one of the original Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, she said that Beverly Hills has become too woke, and that the women are too afraid of getting canceled that they're not really being themselves anymore. And then somebody asked her to define what woke means. And I think she said exactly nobody really knows, was her response, or something to that effect. Do I agree with her? I absolutely agree with her. I think the woke mob is what killed Real Housewives in New York, and I think it's what's killing a lot of housewives shows. How I define woke is I think it panders to, the politically correct police, the people that are so easily offended by everything that want to cancel everybody, outrage culture and cancel culture, all of that, that's all, woke culture, right? It's about, pandering to an audience so that you don't offend them, right? You don't want to upset them. But listen, guys, getting offended is part of life. Like, we're all gonna have things that people say and do that offend us, that's just the reality of it. So I do agree with Camille. I think the housewives are becoming less of themselves, because like it's not as real as it was in the earlier seasons when Housewives first began, where these women were just authentically living out their lives. And some of them were in a bubble and, like listen, like Real Housewives of New York, that started about these kooky white ladies on the Upper East Side of New York. They weren't meant to be in touch with reality. We laughed at them because they were in a bubble of privilege. And then suddenly the audience is like, we no longer want them to be in a bubble of privilege. We don't want to laugh at them anymore. Now we want to police them. So I agree with Camille when she says that, Housewives has become too woke and these women are afraid of being who they are. I actually can say that confidently because some of the behind the scenes conversations that I had with different housewives, they've said, yeah, it's hard. Like we can't really do this or say this or because then we're going to be labeled this or that, and then the mob comes out and they want to like cancel everybody, and it's true. Mallory says, I don't think Anne Marie had the experience on Real Houses of Beverly Hills because she is against trans women athletes. Okay, so yes, so the Anne Marie from last season jumped into the chat too, and she says that yes, she feels like she was misrepresented because of the because she doesn't believe that trans women should be in sports. Okay. Now, this is where I will say, Mallory, I do agree with her because from what I heard, a lot of her conflicts with Crystal, which we saw her and Crystal fight, but a lot of their conflicts were political conflicts between Anne Marie and Crystal, and they had to cut that out. So I do get where she's like, because we're seeing this tension and we're seeing her talk so much about Sutton's esophagus, and that's what they really focused on within her storyline. And I think it is because there were other elements of her story that they didn't want to put in the show because they wanted to avoid politics. And so I think that that was a big part of the issue between Anne Marie and Crystal. Apparently, their blowout in Spain centered around their political differences. And I believe, just from little bits that I've heard, I guess I can only paraphrase and I don't want to misrepresent anybody's position on things, but that was a big part of her conflict with some of the women on the show. And so it does make sense that, there was at least an element of that, and I know one of her more controversial takes is that she doesn't think that trans women should be in women's sports. Mallory says, I do think the women play to the audience and holds back on what the response from the audience might be. Yeah. And I think that that does feed into the woke culture because, the woke people are the ones that want to cancel you for everything. But if anything, we've seen like cancellation doesn't work. People always tend to come back. Look at Stassi, look at Jax, look at Kristen. They were all fired back in 2020. They all came right back. I think the audience is just beyond that because I think canceling people and this outrage culture, it doesn't accomplish anything, right? All it does is make, people feel like they're being heard in some way when it's like, get a life. K. Roy says, it's sad we can't get authentic housewives anymore, but the audience is a lot to blame for that. I agree. I think social media is a lot to blame for that too, right? We gave a lot of stupid people access to social media. And so they're the loud ones, right? I think, Tamara, I think said that, that Bravo producers told her that the loudmouths online are only 3% of the actual audience, which is true. Like when I have like normal conversations about housewives, just like with friends or in passing or whatever, like they're very normal conversations, but those aren't the people that are the ones that are being loud and crazy on social media. So yeah. Coconut says that makes it boring. I agree. Pamela says a lot of trans women take hormones, though. It's not a black and white issue. I don't think. I agree. And that's why I don't want to misrepresent anybody's position on that. Like Anne Marie, I don't know her exact position on why she doesn't think, listen, like you said, it's not a black and white issue. So for that reason, and we don't really need to touch on that. Sharon says, I loved when it was Stassi and Bo. He's so much fun. They have such a cute relationship, and I'm glad that they are in a good place. And I'm actually kind of glad that they're off Vanderpump Rules, even though I enjoyed watching them on Vanderpump Rules. I think it would have hurt the relationship in the end. So I'm kind of glad that they are, not. Michelle says we need to move from cancel culture into reform culture. Call out mistakes, own it, learn from it, do better going forward. The hard part is like we call people out and we pick apart everything based off of whether or not we like them, right? If you see someone on television and they're a villain, then you automatically want to make them the worst person in the world. We're seeing it happen in politics, right? Depending on whether you're on the left or you're on the right, the other person, without seeing them as just like a person, you see them as evil. And then you pick apart and look for all of these reasons why they are evil and the worst thing ever. It's mind-boggling to me how, dense we've become with all of this because it's like it's not that simple, right? It's really not. At the end of the day, Kamala and Trump are just people. And we sensationalize that with social media and then the press, and then, we blow things way out of context. So but I do agree with you, Michelle. We need to like reform culture is great. I think I wouldn't even say reform culture. I would just say accountability, right? People just need to have accountability. And I think when they have accountability and they can genuinely, acknowledge and are willing to move on. But we also have to understand like we're not going to bend people into the mold that we want them to be, right? Just because we point our finger at them and tell them that they're wrong doesn't mean that they're going to see the world the way that we do. Very similar to like Anne Marie, right? She made look at trans women in sports very differently than, some of you listening or watching this right now. And just because you don't see eye to eye doesn't make one person evil over the other, right? Like we can still respect that we have differences and we see the world differently. And that's one of the beauties about being in this country is that all are welcome here. That's why we can't cancel each other because we disagree with them. Mallory says, when it's an edited show with storylines, it's hard to fully judge someone in a situation, even if it's words they have said, you still don't get the full context. I agree. Um, I agree. Okay, that was Beverly Hills. What else do we have? We got the mid-season I think we talked about the mid-season trailer of Salt Lake City last week. Talked about Bethenny dragging RHONY, talked about Kim and Croy, talked about Dorit and Sutton. Okay, I do want to talk about, since I guess we kind of got into the woke conversation, I do want to talk about, what is this? CBS accused of editing out Trump dance celebration as craze sweeps the NFL. Oh, interesting. Somebody just sent me this article. Interesting. CBS has come under fire after furious NFL fans accuse the network of editing out the players' Donald Trump inspired celebration. It's a fun dance. Why do we listen? I know you may not like the dude, and he has a lot of reasons to not like him, but like, who doesn't want to do the little Trump dance, right? I find myself doing it. It's a stupid dance, right? It's ridiculous, but it's y'all being drama, 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 drama. But yeah. That's I want to talk about because people are talking about whether or not Kamala Harris was paying celebrities for their endorsements. And I think there's a little again, remember I said I wanted to, in politics, or at least clarity, right? Adding context to things. And so it does not appear that Kamala Harris was paying any of the celebrities to endorse her, right? In fact, she was just paying their companies, apparently. Well, anyway, there was a new post that came out in the New York Post this morning, a new article that showed that even though, she didn't pay Oprah Winfrey directly for her endorsement, she did pay an estimated 2.5 million to put on the interview that Oprah conducted with Kamala Harris. Very similar to like Call Her Daddy when she had them rebuild the Call Her Daddy set in Las Vegas. That was about an estimated 100 grand. So even though they're like people aren't being paid directly, we just need to clarify that they are for expenses, campaign expenses. Now, I don't agree that we should be spending these exorbitant amounts of, money on these press opportunities. Like it's a little easier. Like, she didn't have to rebuild Joe Rogan's set. Like Rogan was going to have her just come in, and she didn't want to. A plane ticket to go to Rogan would have been cheaper than a $100,000 Call Her Daddy set. But No celebrities were actually paid directly, but I do think we could have been a little more mindful of these expenses, right? Like, considering, like, Americans are, like, struggling to put food on the table, that, maybe we didn't need to, you know, pay $2.5 million to have Oprah interview her. And also, like, if Oprah really wanted to, like, endorse her, usually um it's the media outlet that covers those expenses because 'cause they're the ones that are gonna benefit from the guest interview. So usually, like, originally, I thought Alex Cooper, or not Alex Cooper, I thought, well, I guess not Spotify, but whoever, I guess she's now with SiriusXM. I thought they were gonna front the bill for, or that they were fronting the bill for the Call Her Daddy interview, but I guess Kamala Harris's campaign ended up doing that. But I just think it was a lot of money that we spent on these things, and it maybe wasn't the best use of the money. I think they raised what? It was reported that they raised $1 billion, and then they ended up being $20 million over budget. I'm just like, see, but if we didn't, and then there's also the reported $10 million that was paid to Beyonce. Dance party with Beyonce, Beyonce, Beyonce. I just think, like, we need to get our priorities right. But I understand why, like, that messaging and all of that, like, just fell on deaf ears. I don't think Americans really care about that. I think they care about, finding people that can speak to them, that they feel like is seeing them. Um, so hopefully we learn from this. Hopefully we can not make these same mistakes again in the future. Let's try to keep the budget under $1 billion. That's crazy that we raised $1 billion. She raised $1 billion and then was still and then spent $1 billion in what, a matter of 3 months? That's wild. That is truly wild. Whereas I think Trump had a better strategy of, like, going on. He did a lot of, like, long form podcasts, and didn't do the traditional media circuit, and didn't go the celebrity endorsement route. I mean, he had, like, stupid people like Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock, and I'm just like, that's dumb. But he also had, I think his strength was, he had people like RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard and Elon Musk that people are familiar with, but they also are familiar with the fact that they were previously Democrats, and them talking out about why they left the Democratic Party, and um, are now speaking out in support of why they've chosen to go the other way. I think that was a lot more impactful, and that was a lot more powerful. And then people were giving me shit because, listen, I've previously and will repeatedly continue to say I'm a big supporter of RFK Jr. Um, I know a lot of people think of him as a crazy conspiracy theorist, but if you listened to what I said on the podcast last time about how people take things out of context, I remember with Pete and with Tulsi Gabbard, when I was like, listen, there are more to these people than what the media wants to promote. Pete was Pete Hegseth. Um, and they were like, oh, he's commentator on Fox News. And it's like, well, no, he's actually got a list of different credentials. Very similar to Kennedy. I think people often like to label him as anti-vax or a crazy conspiracy theorist without really ever just, like, listening to him. And I think I've known the man for over a decade at this point. I've been to their home. I remember his wife Cheryl welcomed me in. They had a debate watch party back in 2019, in support of Pete Buttigieg. So, these are people that, are Democrat at their core. And I see people giving Cheryl a lot of shit, and I don't know. I just think these are tough times. Yeah, we gotta find a way to just be a little nicer to each other. But yeah. So I continue to stand by my support of RFK. I know people were tweeting because they went to the UFC fight. Oh, the Logan Paul Mike Tyson fight. My God, that was wild. That was cuckoo for coconuts. And, like, terrible that, like, or he wasn't Logan Paul, Jake Paul. Same thing. Jake Paul fought Mike Tyson. I watched it. It was so bad. It was terrible. It was just like elder abuse. Like, you have someone like Jake Paul that's much younger. He's 27. And then you have someone like Mike Tyson that's, like, pushing 60. Okay. You have a 27-year-old and a 60-year-old, and you're gonna put them in the ring together. Like, poor Mike Tyson looked like he was past his bedtime and he was stumbling on his way out there. I'm like, who approved this? Who gave Mike Tyson permission to come out here and fight this 27-year-old child? I mean, it was kind of, I mean, no, it wasn't even funny. It was sad. I was just like, who, why, what? Like, did we change his diaper before he came out here? Um, Poor Mike Tyson. We really ruined his legacy with that. But Trump was there, and he brought RFK and Tulsi Gabbard and Elon Musk and, like, his people. And then there was a photo of them on the plane. I guess I don't know if it was on their way there or on their way back. There was a photo of them all eating McDonald's, and then everyone's like, "RFK's in the photo, and he's eating McDonald's, and he's supposed to be making America healthy again." And I'm just like, listen, I know people on the right are like saying like it was a joke, and they're like making a meme out of it, and then people on the left are just like, he's a hypocrite, he's contradictory. I mean, y'all need to chill, you know. I think he's very credentialed. I think he's done a lot of environmental work. He's been an environmental attorney for many years. He has fought for children's health for many, many years. I mean, listen, if you take the media headlines out of it, which are sensationalized and exaggerated, as we discovered on this podcast last week when we started to take some of them apart, um, have just a little more faith, right? We have 4 years to come. We have to make the best of it. And if we cry over French fries every other day, because like, God forbid somebody eat McDonald's. I don't like McDonald's. Occasionally I'll have like a cheat meal or something, but like it's just not part of my diet. And I consider myself relatively healthy. I don't remember the last time I even ate McDonald's, to be honest with you. It's been like years on years on years. But yeah, I think people were being too dramatic about it. But I can assure you, he is not a conspiracy theorist. He is not an anti-vaxxer. If you actually take a minute to listen to any of his lectures or any of his long form interviews, you'll hear his positions on things and you'll be like, oh, that's not what I thought of him at all. That's not what I was told about him. And then, like I said last week, when I was breaking down the different headlines, you become infuriated by the manipulation. I see Joy Reid continue to go out there and put out all of this misinformation against people she dislikes politically, and it's ridiculous um, and unfortunate. But I did see, I think it was CBS or MSNBC. Two of the anchors on MSNBC said that they ended up going to Florida and meeting with Trump at Mar-Lago and had a great conversation with him. And they're like, listen, we want to find a way to bridge the divide. And I was like, this is actually positive for MSNBC to go out and want to bridge that divide. I think that this is a step in the right direction because people have lost faith in the mainstream media. 1000%, tenfold. I saw this article in the New York Times that was like circulating and going all around because of what they wrote about RFK. So here's just one example, right? Here's an RFK example from the New York Times. They write, Mr. Kennedy has singled out Fruit Loops as an example of a product with too many artificial ingredients, questioning why the Canadian version has fewer than the US version. But he was wrong. They blatantly state, but he was wrong. Okay. This is a real article. I thought it was fake, and it's turns out to be a real article in the New York Times. But he was wrong. The ingredients list is roughly the same. Although Canada's version has natural colorings made from blueberries and carrots, while the US product contains red dye 40, yellow 5, and blue 1, as well as butylated hydroxytoluene, or BHT, a lab made chemical that is used for freshness, according to the ingredient label. So they just listed 1, 2, 3, 4 artificial ingredients that are in the US version, but not in the Canadian version of Fruit Loops. And here they're saying that Kennedy is wrong in questioning why the Canadian version has fewer than the US version. I mean, talk about science and data backed. These artificial food dyes, there are real impacts, especially on children. They do affect your health. That's been proven. Follow the science, trust the science, listen to the experts. So the fact that the New York Times, like, this is why people are losing faith in the mainstream media. The fact that the New York Times published this, they ran with this story. And then they want me to believe, oh yeah, RFK is a conspiracy theorist, when they're literally making his argument for him in this example with Fruit Loops, which is where they're trying to disprove him. So it makes you question everything else, right? It's unfortunate. And I'm glad that we had like these news anchors on MSNBC. Let me see if I can pull up their actual name so I give them proper credit. It was MSNBC. Morning Joe, MSNBC Morning Joe, the two hosts, said that they decided to visit him, to visit him and have a question, or not, sorry, have a conversation and see if there's a way that they can meet in the middle. And they even said that he was willing to bend on a lot of Democratic policies that he's in favor of. So I think that's definitely a positive. And people are like, "Oh, he's being too tough on immigration." Well, it's like if you go back in history and you look at Obama's policies on immigration, you look at Clinton's policies on immigration, like they were also very tough on immigration and not allowing illegal aliens to come into our country. They were very tough on immigration. I think a number of issues, where you look back at the old clips of like, with the fear mongering of like Trump's anti-gay, but then you see like Obama and Biden and Clinton and they were all anti-gay up until, they ended up in the White House, then eventually changed their tune, and then you go back to interviews of Trump back in the 90s, or you watch Celebrity Apprentice. Perfect example was Clay Aiken. I just watched a clip of him hazing Clay Aiken. He's like, "Are you a homosexual?" And Clay Aiken's like, "Yes, I am." And he's like, "Well, that's why restaurants have menus. Some people like spaghetti and some people like pasta. Or sorry, some people like spaghetti and some people like pizza." He's like, there are different things on the menu because people have different preferences. He's like, all right. He didn't throw Clay Aiken out of the boardroom. He didn't fire him because he's gay. So I think again, a lot of that fear mongering, a lot of the media manipulation, we just need to be more aware of it and maybe take a step back, read beyond the headlines, maybe look at both sides of the coin, and then maybe you'll find yourself somewhere in the middle. I don't know. Maybe. Not saying you should, not saying you shouldn't. Just saying, we can all have a little more grace. We can have a little more empathy for each other. I think people on both sides, the right and the left, are a little intolerant at times and don't want to meet in the middle. And if anything, now is when we need to be more willing to buckle, you know? So, yeah. What about Project 2025? Okay, Project 2025 is not real. That's been disproven many, many times. The media will keep using it as a talking point, but it has been disproven many, many, many times. The news just doesn't want you to think that, you know? So, yeah. Mallory says the message of mass deportation villainizing immigrants from Trump and his campaign is way different from. Yeah, the messaging is very different. I agree with that. But the reality is we do have an immigration issue. And listen, it's tough, right? I know he's not deporting legal immigrants. They're people that don't have legal status here, right? Again, we may have differences in politics. We may see things differently. I don't love a lot of his rhetoric. But I think at the end of the day, we all are seemingly wanting the same things for our country, prices to be cheaper, our country to be safer. We all have different ideas of how we think those goals should be accomplished. So rather than vilifying each other for our differences, I think that there are just opportunities um, again, meet in the middle. Zack, please don't spread false information. Project 2025 is real and I have a copy. Yes, it exists, right? It exists, right? Like meteors exist, but the meteor is going to hit us tomorrow. Not real. A meteor exists. A meteor could hit us tomorrow, but it's not going to, right? So yes, Project 2025 does exist, but it was independently written by, I believe it's the Heritage Foundation, of which are not affiliated with the Trump administration. So yes, it does exist. However, it is not real. As Storm Doris said, the creators of Project 2025 testified before government that Trump isn't affiliated with it. Exactly. So yes, it does exist. Somebody did write it. Donald Trump did not write it. Donald Trump has not, said that he is going to run with it. So Everly says Trump is not a good guy. Look at his criminal history. He's a liar. I mean, listen, Kamala Harris lied when she said that he was for Project 2025. Like politicians are liars. His criminal history. What is his criminal history? You mean where that was the other thing that like really got me was the 34 felony convictions, right? Everyone's like, oh, he's a grapist. He was convicted of grape. And then you look at these lawsuits and you look at these cases. Remember, we've done that a lot on this show where we looked at like the Rachel Leviss lawsuit against Tom and Ariana. Sounds bad, right? If you don't like Tom Sandoval, you want him to be, prosecuted, but it's not a criminal case. It's a civil case. The burden of proof in a civil case versus a criminal case, very, very different, right? The 34 felony counts, most people don't realize that was about improperly report or falsifying, business documents, because he didn't say that he was paying his attorney back for hush money for Stormy Daniels. Like, if you actually look at that, like, Google what are the 34 felonies, and you'll see each of those felonies is an invoice, a ledger, a check. Like, it's not even anything that anybody would normally go to prison for. Um, so, like, it's quite ridiculous. But like I said, some people just don't want to hear certain messages. I understand that. I know you guys may not like the guy. I'm not trying to come up here and defend him, but what I will do is if I see somebody spreading information that is lacking context or not fully in its truth, I will respond to it. Yeah. Stephanie says it's because he lied on his accounting for the hush money that was paid. Yes, he said they were attorney's fees that he was paying, not hush money that he was paying to his attorney. So, yeah, that's exactly what he was. Yeah, he was guilty for. But most people think that it's something way more insidious than that, which it's not. Purposefully, I am 100% on politics, and this is very sad. Well, I mean, I don't think anybody's 100% on politics ever, but I'm glad that you are very confident. So, yeah. Well, if I hold one person accountable, then I'm holding all accountable. Yeah, I agree. I'm on that same page, you know? Stephanie, you're making very egregious or very big accusations. Come on, look at Jean Carroll. Be for real. Jean Carroll was a civil case. Again, the burden of proof in a civil case, very different. If you also look at how, the laws may or may not have been changed to bring that case forward, little questionable, makes you raise a few eyebrows. TDS is real. Yeah, Trump derangement syndrome is real. It really is. It really is. Listen, I don't care for him. I don't really like the guy. I don't. The fact that like I come on here and like, but it's like I don't know. It's just kind of crazy to me. There's no such thing as a civil rapist, Stephanie. But see, but isn't it crazy that like instead of just like listening and like trying to meet me in the middle, like people are like, no, but this, and no, but that, and no, but this, and no, but that. And it's like, okay. Some people just aren't ready to have those conversations. Like, I get it. If you need to validate your hatred for somebody, by all means, do you, boo. I just don't operate from that position. So yeah. So there we go. Grab him by the pussy. Okay, now we're going back to the 2016 election. I mean, listen, I don't love that either, but like how many crude things and jokes do we say? I mean, shit, if anybody's joined any of our members only, do you know half of the crude jokes and comments that are made in the live chat? You're gonna tell me those are all terrible people? No, we just have a dirty sense of humor, you know? I don't like it, from a president, absolutely not. But I also didn't like what Bill Clinton did to Monica Lewinsky either, you know? Sydney says, I'm happy to meet in the middle, Zack, but it doesn't sound like you are representing both sides fairly. Well, because I represented the other side for far too long until eventually I couldn't connect with that other side anymore. You know, I've gone on my own journey. Laura says we all get unhinged in the live chat and members only. Yeah, absolutely. Um, yes, I hold Kamala Harris more accountable than I hold. Yeah, I mean, listen, we talked about how people were saying that she was paying celebrities for endorsements, and I corrected that. I said, no, they were for expenses. I don't agree with these expenses, but they were for expensive. I don't agree that I don't like that Trump falsified his invoice, but is that the worst thing to give him a felony on? Not necessarily when you kind of look at the grand scheme of things. I'm not saying he's a great guy, you know, I haven't defended him. It says Bill Clinton sucks and is scum and he should be accountable too. Well, were you going to vote for Hillary back in 2016 because that would have brought Bill Clinton back in the White House? So it seems like you're okay with certain rapists coming into the White House. Just depends on where their politics align with. Yeah. Yeah. Smara says, I don't like Trump, but none of these people are saints. Yeah, I mean, and we can't look at either of them as saints or either of them as the eternal enemy, you know? So it is what it is. Sydney says, okay, I'm not saying he's a great guy, is kind of what I needed to hear you say. I've never said he was a great guy. I've never, like, I don't even like defending him, but I hold him accountable for the shit that he does do, right? Instead of, dragging all this out. Mallory says she didn't vote in 2016. Listen, and that's fair. But my point is, so many people use that argument against Trump rather than, and then forget that, oh, wait, they voted to bring Bill Clinton back into the White House back in 2016, myself included. I voted for Hillary in 2016. I voted for Biden in 2020. But you do defend him a lot, to be fair. No, I defend because there's so much misinformation about him. That's why, And so I'm not trying to, come on here and convince you that he's the greatest guy ever. But what I do is try to convince you that maybe he's not as terrible as we're constantly hearing all over the place, right? Emily says, I know most politicians are politicians for the power it gives them, not for the good of the people. And Trump is high on power. He does have a big ego. Got to give it to him for that. He does have a big ego. He has a big ego. He thinks about himself, I think, more than anybody else. But I also don't think that that would necessarily make him a dictator. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We got 4 years, We'll have to wait and see. You are misinformed, Zach. Thank you. I appreciate that, Stephanie. Be well. Smaga says, you guys came at him, but will not even let him say the opposite of devil's advocate. Yeah. Thank you. So, well, listen, there's a lot of good. I woke up this morning. This video came up on my feed about gratitude and how you should wake up and list 10 things out that you're grateful for, 10 things that you're grateful for, 3 people that you dislike, or 10 people that you are not like a fan of, right? Or sorry, 10 things that you're grateful for, 3 people that you maybe don't necessarily agree with or don't align with anymore, and then 5 minutes. So is that 10, 3, 5? So write down 10 things that you're grateful for. Think of 3 people that you don't necessarily like in this moment and send them love. 3 people, bring them into mind, find a reason to have some compassion for them and send them some love, and then take 5 minutes to just sit and take 5 minutes to sit and ask for guidance from God, from the universe, from whoever your higher power is. Maybe it's from your own internal guiding point, your own instincts. Ask for that guidance, move through the day with that, that knowledge and know that it's going to be a good day. So, yeah. I look forward to more of these combos the next 4 years. Yeah, listen, so do I. I think, a lot of people are ready and willing, right? Stormdoor says, I'm positive for good things to come. What you think manifests. Negative thoughts and stress age you and create disease within the soul and the body. That's right. I agree with that, Storm. And on that message, we can definitely end on that note. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you're having a good start to your week. Thank you for all the love. Thank you for all the support. Even when we disagree, I still love you nonetheless. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for engaging in the live chat. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for the reviews that you leave. I like when they're nice ones. I know sometimes people want to be mean in them. That's okay too. I still love and accept you for exactly who you are. Even if I'm like, listen, you throw potatoes on New Year's Day. You throw giant potatoes on New Year's Day. So, all right, guys, I love you. I appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. I'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday. My pop report schedule is changing. So it looks like Tuesdays will kind of be back on par. Jan says, we've been canceled. Have you been? Have we? What? Oh, Sharon says, I left you a good cameo. Thank you, Sharon. Yes, guys, if you want to book a cameo, if you want a personalized message from me, someone just asked me the other day, they're like, can you give my 7-year-old a little pep talk? And I was like, of course. Anybody a pep talk. I'll give my best Bethenny Frankel pep talk. So yeah, book me on Cameo. And be sure to get your uncommon goods. uncommonGoods.com/no filter. All right, guys. Ciao for now. Bye.